Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that's caught our eye this week. I'm CarsGuide Deputy Editor James, and with me a senior journalist Richard.
Hey, hello.
And Deputy News Editor Justin.
Hello.
Welcome to both of you. This week we've donned the product planning hat yet again, and we're looking at where to from here for Nissan in Australia. We'll also discuss a trio of recent entries to the CarsGuide Garage. YouTubers, you can jump ahead courtesy of the time codes in the notes below, and you can click on the chapter markers in the timeline. So let's go. Let's get straight into it. Nissan. It's over time, for me, it's been one of those brands where you always just think, there are some other great things happening in the world of Nissan elsewhere, but that we miss out on in Australia. And so Stephen Otley, our own Stephen Otley, has authored a story on, look, it's easy. Why don't you just get this, and this, bring it to Australia, and happy days. Everything will be fine. But he likened it to you getting a report card at high school, which is, tries hard but could do better. And the do better bit is his stab at working out which models need to come here. And the first one is, I think it's one of the best names for a vehicle out there at the moment, the Titan. We've talked about it a lot. It seems like a no-brainer. The Ram is doing so well in Australia. There's the usual, it's left-hand drive only, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know about you guys. To me, it seems like it would really give Nissan a boost to have something like that big pickup.
I mean, if you needed to convince yourself as to why that case works, like you said, it's all back to the Ram 1500. I mean, the number of those that they sell. And again, that is also another model that is only available in left-hand drive. So it gets remanufactured locally to right-hand drive and, sold at a premium, but people still buy them and they sell in high numbers. So I know Nissan Australia at times has talked about tapping a partner to do a similar thing in terms of converting the Titan to right-hand drive. So, that is still potentially something that could happen down the line. I don't know if we'll ever see factory right-hand drive, but you've got to think that they'd sell quite a few if they were able to get it out in the market. Well,
Richard, I know you've got a pretty handy garage and you're not bad with the spanners. I would have thought you would have had some kind of contact with Nissan at this point.
Oh, look, I do have contacts with Nissan there. They're all the wrong type of contacts, however.
That's right. Yes, the lesser-known parts of the business.
Oh, yes, we go right back. Look, I think once we start to see big trucks, I'm talking F-150s and stuff like that, arrive in Australia, maybe we might see a Titan then. Look, it's been hard enough trying to get the other car manufacturers to consider Australia seriously as a market for a ute, if you could call it that, a pickup that big. But as we've seen, and as you guys have said, the successive vehicles like Ram and a few others say that there's an appetite for it in Australia. Hilux is tiny compared to a Titan, but it would be awesome to see it here. And I think it will come, if, as Justin said, if they can work out a way to turn it into a right-hand drive. If not, there would have to be plenty of outfits in Australia that can do the conversion. In fact, I could probably do it myself if you wanted to bring it over here.
It's easy. You just need a chain and some kind of pulley on the other side under the dashboard, and it's done.
Exactly right. Well, I've seen that done. That's quite dangerous. Don't do that at home. Do it at my home. But yeah, look, I'd love to see it. But yeah, I reckon when F-150 arrives, that will ignite the big pickup thing in Australia, and there's a bigger chance.
The Navara has a good reputation. It's not up there in the sales race. Hilux and Ranger seem to own it for utes and the market overall. But Navara has such a good reputation. You can imagine it can kind of ride on that and come in here. And for people who want the big towing capacity,
it's a no-brainer. Like if you just want to make money as a car company, you just need a sports car and a ute. And Ford has proven that. Now, Nissan has the Nissan GT-R, which is one of the most formidable race road cars in the world. And they've got that sorted. And they've got a Titan. Bring that here, and listen, you're going to make mega bucks.
What I would say, though, is if you are an Australian buyer who is really keen to buy a Titan, there are like smaller conversion outfits that currently do sell it. So you could get one, but it would cost you a pretty penny. You'd think that Nissan's version would be a little bit more affordable given the volume in which they'd be able to sell it in. But just a personal anecdote, I've actually driven the Titan before in Morocco, of all places, and it is...
Of course you have. A great
pickup. And I really, really enjoyed driving around. But again,
you were running drums
country, there was plenty of width to play with.
You were
really concerned about how, you would go in the urban jungle, so to say. So it was good fun.
You were running contraband across the border, though, into Algeria at the time, weren't you?
I will not comment.
Yeah. That's a great one. The most exotic car location combination that comes to my mind is driving a Lamborghini Aventador on snow in Japan.
What?
Yeah.
In Japan?
Yeah. So there's a Titan in Morocco.
Yeah.
Aventador on snow in Japan. Yeah. Richard.
I've done a Touareg in Morocco as well.
Okay.
Which is not as fancy as a Lambo in Japan on snow. But I've done a Ford Ranger through a minefield in Mozambique. And I ran up the hill to get a photo of all the Rangers together. And then I had men with guns screaming at me to stop. And I thought it was because there was an embargo on the pics, right? But I'd run into a minefield to get a better vantage point. And I had to come down exactly the way that I went up
there.
Yeah, otherwise I would go up and come down in bits.
Well, that's a way better story then.
Yeah.
That's a great story. That's a topper. All right, fantastic. Well, the next Nissan, just get back to reality for a second, or actually it's not reality, but the X-Terra, which we've just been speaking about, a terrifying situation. This is the X-Terra, formerly Terra, that Stephen thinks is another prospect for Australia. And Justin, can you fill us in about this car? It's been around for a little while. What is the background for it?
Yeah, so basically it launched a few years ago in Southeast Asian markets, not Australia, obviously, but in those smaller countries like Indonesia and so on and so forth, Thailand. It launched as the Terra, believe it or not. And it's essentially the Nissan Navara.
It's T-E-R-R-A, right? Or is it Terra?
T-E-R-R-A, yeah.
Okay.
But essentially it's the Navara SUV. So it's the equivalent of a Ford Everest or a Toyota Fortuner or a Isuzu MU-X, right? So it's the same kind of vehicle. So if you could imagine that's exactly what it is. But it's been off the cards for Australia for some time now due to a lack of safety specification it would need for this market. Right. And also the engines were holding it back too. So theoretically, you'd like to think they could just put the Navara's engine in it, which it currently doesn't have, and some of the safety gear, and it would be here. But apparently, it's not that simple. So,
you'd have a kind of more urban-friendly Pathfinder, and then an off-road capable X-Terra.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly. So if you wanted to go off the beaten track, but wanted to take the family with you. And do it in a little bit more comfort than perhaps a Navara would offer, then absolutely, you would take the Terra/X-Terra to do that.
Well, it sounds like safety would be that's a bit of a hill to climb, isn't it? To try and make something comply from a safety point of view, that's got to be a pretty big challenge. But anyway, that again, if you added Titan and X-Terra, already you're talking a pretty big lift.
And look, that's what Nissan's sort of missing from its lineup. It doesn't have a Toyota's got Fortuner, Ford's got Everest, the Isuzu's got the MU-X. They're all Laddo and Cedars. Nissan's got the Patrol, and it is it's a big beast, but it also costs $5 million. It doesn't. It costs about $100,000. But they need something. They need a ladder-on frame 7-seater. They can go places that other soft roaders can't and can carry 7 people. So something like that,
So that sounds like a plausible one in terms of where it might, supplement the local Nissan range. Now, Aria. I normally spell Aria A-R-I-A, but there's a Y in here, Aria, and it's an all-electric model, and that seems to be very much the kind of wave of interest is starting to build for electric vehicles, and there's the Leaf, of course, but the Aria looks to have a little more personality. The Leaf is quite conventional in the way it looks and feels, and even the way it drives. Aria, not so much.
Yeah, I think the Aria is a huge model for Nissan in general, but not only just in Australia. It's debuting a new platform for the brand, and a dedicated electric platform, which will be shared by other alliance members, Mitsubishi, Renault, so on and so forth. So it is very much the next generation EV for them, and being a mid-size SUV as well. I mean, that's the segment that most private buyers are buying in these days. So it seems like an absolute no-brainer, and I would be shocked, that's a pun, if it wasn't on sale in Australia here next year.
Do you know the sad thing is I wouldn't have got that pun unless you'd called it out.
Well, I'm glad I spelled it out.
Thank you.
And to people who aren't watching on YouTube, he gave us a bit of a wink.
There was
a naughty slow wink. Look, it's funny, isn't it? Because Nissan seems to be, and has been, along with Toyota, been leading the way with electric vehicles with their Leaf. And so it's unusual that we haven't seen anything to really follow up that car. But look, there's a good case for electrifying their entire range. Nissan's got the entire, seems to have the EV thing under control, and I think that might be secretly where things are going, because I think it's quite obvious that for the last 10 years, Nissan's lineup has been a bit lost in the wilderness. And look, I'm digressing here, but I had a bit of a sly conversation with the head of Nissan Oceania in a little downtown bar in Yokohama.
In Morocco. Yokohama.
Yokohama. And his words were that Nissan's lineup, is terrible. And he said that it's going to take an entire generation to try and turn it around. But he put his hand on my shoulder and he looked into my eyes and he said, "But don't worry, there are great things coming." And
right. Was he talking about the two of you, or was it just more about the vehicles?
No, he was talking about everything. He's promising me
it was a holistic conversation.
That's right. No, but honestly and truthfully, that the conversation did take place, and there's exciting things in the pipeline. But I think Nissan's been derailed slightly by a gentleman called Carlos with the joint venture with Renault a few years ago, and now he's fled to Lebanon, I think. I've been to Lebanon as well, and I've had conversations with Carlos as well, and he said the same thing. But look, I'm digressing. I think electrification is the way forward for Nissan, and I think if it can match like a F-150 Lightning or something like that with its Titan, that'd be great. But I think the Aria is the first the start of things to come from Nissan. I'm hoping it turns things round.
Super. Okay. Well, I suppose that you're right to call out the disruption that Carlos Ghosn's tenure at the top of that whole alliance seemingly created. And you'd have to think there's a regrouping going on, and all the new product is an outcome from that. So not the work of 5 minutes, but it's happening.
It'll happen.
The other ace up the sleeve that Stephen believes is possibly underplayed at the moment is Nismo. Nismo, it's been around for quite a long time. It has a genuine, like an authentic motorsport kind of background that's in its DNA. It's been applied to certain cars, not others. It's been a little bit piecemeal as we've gone along, but he thinks there's room for a Nismo Navara, Patrol, which we've spoken about before on the podcast, and Juke. And there has been a Nismo version of the Juke in the past, I believe, in the previous generation. So what do you think about Nismo? I mean, with the rise of GR for Toyota and performance still being a thing that a lot of Australian buyers want. You've got Hyundai with N and R for Volkswagen and all of these letters of the alphabet. Nismo seems to be a little bit underdone for mine.
It's a total no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, because it's an aspirational sub-brand. So it's not necessarily about the people that will actually go and buy Nismo so much as the people that actually walk into a Nissan's showroom in the first place and go, "Oh, that's cool. Okay, maybe I'm going to walk away with a Juke today, but in the future, I'd love to buy a Juke Nismo." It's a total no-brainer.
Nismo's an amazing brand. I've been to the Nismo Festival at Fuji Speedway in Japan, and the love for Nismo in its home country is like, it's like the Holden dealer team and the HSV in Australia. Right. When they power park their Nismo Jukes in the car park at Fuji Speedway, and there's Jukes all like this with the upgrades and the body kits, and it looks amazing. And then you've got the Nismo GTRs, right, in the next row, and there's hundreds. So, and it's just the merchandise. It's so big, and it would work so well in Australia. And it's exactly like you said with N and AMG for Benz and M for BMW. It would absolutely work. I've driven the Nismo Juke in Australia. It doesn't offer much in the way of performance additions, but it does look good in terms of the body kit they offer, all that type of stuff. They've got to bring that back, and they need to bring pop and Nismo cars as well. The Juke R, bring the Juke R back. That was a normal Juke fitted with.
Oh, that's right, with the GTR powertrain.
R35,
I suppose you mentioned the Z car, or for our American listeners and viewers, the Z. And Justin, I think your mail is that what we've been calling the 400Z is going to be just Z, maybe, rather than any kind of numbers attached. And GTR is one of the most ancient vehicles on the Australian car market, and I think they're going around again for another GTR. So that will certainly, we were talking a little while ago, but the halo effect. I mean, both of those will have a positive effect, and if you bring a bit of Nismo love onto various models, I would have thought the Nismo Navara would be fantastic.
Absolutely. And I think next generation Navara, we're going to see something, of a higher performance standard. And they've certainly talked about it lots. Whether or not that wears a Nismo badge or something else, we'll see in due course. But there's definitely going to be something along those lines coming for Navara. But even again, going back to Patrol for a moment, that current Patrol Nismo, if they brought that to Australia, I mean, again, Patrol sales have been through the roof in the last 18 months because of COVID and what have you. And the Nismo so many people would just be like, yes, because it has that visual presence that the regular Patrol doesn't have. So it's a total gift.
Yeah, it's true. It could be a bit of a arms race, really, when you think about the Raptor, the W580 Amarok, GR Hilux, Rally Art, Triton. Then you have a Nismo Navara. Wow. It's a new era of performance, but applied to dual cab use.
Absolutely. I think the next 3 years or so is going to be very interesting in that space.
It will be. If I was another car maker, if I was maybe not Toyota, because Toyota's got such a massive lead, even though it shouldn't get ahead of itself, Toyota. I would be most afraid of Nissan, because Nissan's got such a strong heritage, such a strong fan base, and I know that they've got amazing cars in the pipeline. I think the next 3 years, as Justin said, the next 10 years is going to be Nissan's decade. It's just got to get over the crap that it's been through from the bloke who left. The
stormy waters. Yes.
And once it's over that, as you said, JC, it doesn't happen overnight. This takes a whole generation to get things back in, ducks in line again. Nissan's the one to watch, for sure.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting. That should go on our wall again, where we've made these bold predictions.
I did say Tesla would be dead in 2 years as well, but
that's right.
Still time. Time.
Well, in a way it is. It's dead in its heart, but there's still going.
Dead eyes. Yeah,
exactly. That's good. And we were talking also about electrification, and to go bigger on that. And in a way, Nissan's already started down that track with e-power. So I was only looking at some news out of Japan not that long ago that they've sold 500,000 e-power models, mainly the Kicks and the Note, neither of which we get here, but maybe they should be another two that we're thinking about, smaller kind of models. But when you think about how successful the RAV4 hybrid has been and continues to be in this market, that whole e-power thing holds a lot of appeal as well, I would have thought. What do you reckon, Justin?
And I think about all the cars that Stephen Otley mentions as potential, points for expansion for Nissan Australia, the e-power stuff is essentially guaranteed. I mean, the Qashqai e-power has been confirmed pretty much for Australia, and the X-Trail is all but confirmed. So we're going to see hybrid SUVs in the small and mid-sized segments from Nissan
Yeah.
Probably in the next 12 months. And I think that's critical because, again, when you just look at the success of RAV4, if they want to grow, you've got to have something that's going to make people think twice. And the interesting thing about e-Power, it's not a conventional Toyota hybrid, so to say. It's the electric motor driving the wheels, and the engine, it just acts as a generator for the battery.
Yeah, right. It's
not
that way.
A regular hybrid. You're not getting both power sources driving independently or at the same time the wheels. It is electric only all the time with the generator. Basically, it's a range extender. So
amazing. And it puts more pressure on the likes of, Hyundai Tucson without those kinds of options at the moment.
Absolutely.
If Nissan starts to hit e-Power hard, the whole thing gets a lot more competitive.
And interesting that Nissan's claiming that the e-Power is more efficient than Toyota's hybrids. Now, the claims from overseas certainly don't suggest that, but perhaps in the real world, maybe they will be. So we'll see.
Okay.
I disagree. It seems like a backward step having your electric motor, right? It's energy generated from petrol. Like, it just sounds ridiculous. What, you carry around a little petrol refinery to run your electric motor? That's
Think
crazy.
How successful the Holden Volt was. That was, you've got the absolute case study in terms of how to do it.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
i3 range extender that got dropped after about 2 years.
The runs are on the board.
They've got it round the wrong way. They've got the cart before the horse. Toyota's got it right. It's the Toyota hybrids a move away from petrol engines, and the petrol is kind of like a supplement to get you through. We've got to get ourselves off it. Otherwise, we're going to have bigger and bigger petrol generators to try and drive our electric cars. It was like
I saw a vid during the week. I think it was real, 50-50, might have been a setup, but it was a guy in a Tesla who had just in the middle of nowhere run out of juice.
Yeah.
And another person had pulled up and someone that was with him had started filming. And this guy, fair income, had a generator in the boot of his Tesla to charge the car in case of emergency.
Yeah, look, it's bad enough that most
a petrol powered generator.
Yeah, I know. It's bad enough that electric vehicles, the electricity that comes into electric vehicles is being produced by a coal-fired power station, let alone being produced. What, you're going to have a big petrol power station on the horizon that makes electricity for your electric cars? It's ridiculous.
That is a killer point. That is a great point. Yeah.
E-Power.
All right. E-Power, maybe it's an E- as opposed
definitely.
to, that's quite a hard score. So that's the long and short of it. He's gone down half a dozen different paths there as ways forward for Nissan Australia. So
the Pulsar. I want to bring the Pulsar out, the Triple S. The Pulsar, an electric, an EV Pulsar.
Yes.
I already have that. It's called the Leaf, isn't it?
Yeah. What was the Pulsar called for a while here? And it was just it was a global name, but it didn't. It didn't fly.
What, the Tita?
Tita. That's it. Let's bring that back.
And it had what's her name doing the ads for it.
Yeah, that's going to get some foot traffic in the showrooms. If they can revive Tita, that's going to kill it.
Oh yeah, 2 eyes.
All right. Let's draw a line under that. That was a good chat, and move to our garage and the cars that we've been driving this week. Richard, could I kick it off with you, please? And we've been talking about electric and hybrid. You've been in a different kind of hybrid. Please fill us in.
It's probably my favourite plug-in hybrid I've ever driven. It's the Volvo XC40. It's the smallest SUV in Volvo's range, the XC40, but it's a plug-in hybrid. So you need to plug it in if you want to get the best out of it. It's got a fuel consumption, the claimed combined consumption of 2.2 litres per 100 kilometres.
Yeah.
I've been charging it up and I've been getting about 2.5. And that's just because, there's a lot of traffic and I like the acceleration. So I like to stop on the pedal. So that's still 2.5 litres per 100, around the city is excellent. It's really well packaged. It's got gigantic door pockets. It's got a pretty big boot for this, it's a tiny SUV. It's got a really comfortable ride. It's great steering. I've really enjoyed driving it. It's one of those cars where there are some cars where we just can't wait to hand them back, but it's one of those cars where if I was in the market for a plug-in hybrid, I'd probably buy that one for a small family. We've just got one kid and it suits us perfectly. Wouldn't get the number plates that are on it though. It's so the Volvo plug-in hybrid range is called Recharge, and that's also the number plate. It says Recharge, and it's RECHRGE. And so people look at me when I'm driving it, and they think I pay $800 a year for those plates, and I've bought this car, and they think I'm, a bit of a wanker. That's
unfortunate. Yes. That is unfortunate. I feel your pain.
But it's a great car. It's an awesome car.
Good. Excellent. All right. Justin, how about yourself? You have been in a European car from a different part of Europe and a different kind of vehicle, really. Fill us in on yours.
Yeah, I've been driving the Skoda Scala this week, which is the Czech company's new small hatchback or wagon, depending on what way you want to look at it. But I guess it competes with its sibling, the Volkswagen Golf, and many others in that segment. And it's been a long time coming for that brand, I think, and it's a pretty excellent vehicle. I think it looks pretty good. It's quite spacious, comfortable, pretty high quality. The engine, this particular one, the limited edition, is a 110 TSI, so it's got a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder. Decent performance, but it's also really efficient. I've been quite impressed. Been averaging about 6 litres and done a lot of driving in and around the city, so that's very good. So that's been quite good. But I kind of feel a bit indifferent about it, and I think it comes down to one thing. The more and more I think about it, what the hell were they thinking when they conceived the climate controls? They are shocking.
Really?
So it's kind of like a lot of brands have kind of gone one of two ways, right? You either stick with physical climate controls, so knobs, switches, buttons, whatever, which is the way that should be.
Yeah.
Or you start embracing the touchscreen and moving away from those physical controls. Skoda, for whatever reason, seems to have a foot in both camps, which is not great because it makes it even more frustrating. So
you're wrong.
You're wrong
because they're giving you options. You can either do the dials.
Let me explain. So you cannot control the fan speed physically. You have to go through the touchscreen. You can adjust your temperature and all that kind of stuff physically. That's great. But I personally am the type of driver that's always fiddling with the fan speed. I don't use the auto settings. You're a
fan speed fiddler. I've noticed that about you.
I'm a fan speed fiddler. Anyway, so if you want to adjust the fan speed, you have to hit a climate button that's physical on the climate control panel on the lower dash. And then it takes you to the touchscreen, and then you can adjust your fan speed. But again, it's a touch slider, so you have to use your finger, and sometimes you don't get it to 1 or 2 or whatever you want. And it distracts you. If you're driving and you're like, okay, I've had too much fan, I want less fan, then you're going to have to do quite a bit of fiddling and taking your eyes off the road. I'm not saying it's completely dangerous, but it's distracting.
I think the problem's acute for you because you are a fiddler. You're a fiddler.
Oh my God. I don't think I've ever heard a more first world. It's the first world problem I've ever heard. That's just so... Look, I tell you what I love about the Scala, right? So the Scala is basically the successor to the Skoda Rapid. We've got a Rapid. That's our family car. The thing I love about the Rapid and the Scala, because they've carried it forward as well, go outside, open that back door and look how big it is. Sit behind your driving position and then get out and then be amazed. I don't know how, and Skoda are really good at doing this. They package their cars really well. How have they managed to get that much leg room in the back? And it's huge. Then go around the back, open the boot. Now, the Skoda Rapid's got a 425-litre boot. Christ, that's bigger than like most SUVs, right? Or most mid-size SUVs. Now, have a look in the Scala as well. How do they get it? How is it that the car's tiny, but the insides are so big?
To that point, though, it's actually based on the Polo platform. It's not even based on the Golf platform.
Wow.
So the fact that they've been able to liberate that much space, it's bigger than the Golf, but it's not even Golf size.
Skoda have worked out how to like break a hole in the space-time continuum, I reckon. Because that's
simply clever, some would say.
No, well, every point in time exists at the same time anyway, Richard.
Yes,
every vehicle has an infinite amount of space, really.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Is that all from you on that one, Justin? Or
that's all from me. I just want to drive home the point that climate controls are becoming worse, and Volkswagen, sorry, just to go off on one slight tangent, Volkswagen, the Golf has got like a touch slider, which is even worse.
Wow.
And it's not even illuminated. So at night, you've got no idea what the hell you're doing. But that's a story for another day.
I think there's scope for an entire podcast hosted by you, Justin.
Yeah.
And it's just called fiddling, or HVAC fiddling, or something like that.
Perhaps.
Let's investigate that. Now,
hello, and welcome to the Climate Control Podcast.
The Climate Control Podcast. I'm your host, Fiddler Justin. And now,
today, fan speed.
that's right. Sliders on the screen or a manual control. All right. Now, I'm going to have a crack at the Nissan Juke ST-L Plus. So this is a 1 litre turbo triple. It has a monumental 84 kilowatts, 180 Newton meters, 7-speed dual clutch, front wheel drive, and it's 35 grand, a little bit over. So that's where it is. So it's in just one of those white hot parts of the market. You know, it's up against Seltos, CHR, Kona, HRV, CX3, ASX, the MG ZS, and it goes on. It's right in there against a lot of high quality competitors. What I would say about it, it looks different. I've had different feedback from people that have seen it that quite like it. It's different in a good way. It's different in a bad way. So there's that. The 3-cylinder is typically growly. You know, a 3-cylinder engine is always going to have that guttural kind of sound to it, and that's quite engaging. It steers pretty well, and for me, that's kind of where it ends. I've got a few negatives. Primary amongst them is that dual clutch transmission. It lacks refinement, as in it is rough, and the ride in the car is poor. The brakes are touchy. You roll off the throttle and the car lurches forward, so you find yourself just searching for some kind of continuity and smoothness in the car. It is not a smooth car. It's kind of bumpy. The transmission's rough. The brakes are touchy. It's hard to drive smoothly.
To that point, the DCT recently received a software upgrade, which existing Juke owners that didn't have, obviously, that update are eligible to receive at their dealership next time they go in for a service or what have you.
Yeah.
But obviously that has been issued to address some of that unrefinement. And the example you were driving obviously has that update, but it sounds like even though it's been fiddled, it still hasn't been improved. Apparently the update was to stop a hesitancy when you're accelerating, that it sort of was unresponsive when you wanted it to get going. And there's no issue with this car on that score. It will take off when you want it to, but it's just kind of shunty and clunky and not a great transmission.
JC, I've driven both. So I went to the launch of that new generation Juke a few months ago, or it was probably a year ago now. And that transmission, that dual clutch transmission in that first car, first iteration of this new generation that came out was just that jerkiness was so pronounced to the point where it felt like it was whoever was controlling the robotized manual gearbox felt like a new driver, because it was like this as you were changing gears. It was really lurching, really slow on the uptake, and then quite whooshy with the Turbo 3. And then I drove the Juke we had in the garage that Tom White was driving, and I said, look, can I just have a drive around the block? I want to see what the software update's done. It's kind of like what they had a really rough piece of wood and you got splinters on it, and they've got some sandpaper and they've sanded it a bit, but they haven't gone to a silky level.
Yeah.
It's still a bit rough. It's not the best at all, but JC, it's better than it was. I don't mind the look of it. I think it's the Steve Buscemi Buscemi of motor cars.
Okay.
But, I think he's also an intriguing looking bloke. I love the fact that it looks like it's the type of car that you could drive down a boat ramp and into the water and spend the day, on thick water in it, driving around. Out on Port Phillip Bay. And then drive back again and drive home up the boat ramp.
Amazing.
It looks amphibious.
Have you tried that at this point?
I've never tried it, but if you've tried it, you're listening at home and you've tried it, let us know how that went.
Could be worth a whirl. You never know what it's capable of until you try.
Would Nissan tell you if it was amphibious? I'd go, oh, yeah, it is actually. You can drive it in the water and we'll drive. It's like, remember the Beetle? You could drive the Beetle in the water. Yeah.
Look, the other thing, just to keep picking on it a bit, the other thing I found is it's not an enormous car. That's fair enough. But the packaging within its footprint is not terrific. It's hard to get in and out of the back. There's stuff all legroom for me, and my head was hitting the roof. And the other thing about that transmission is, unless you select sport and you're just in a normal mode, it is constantly hunting for the next gear because it wants to be as economical as it can be. So it takes the edge off the engine. So you've got to put it in sport, which sets you the scales the other way, and you're hanging on to gears possibly a little longer than you'd like to.
What was the interior like inside as well?
This one, people on YouTube will be able to see it. Yeah. It's the black and white. It's like the keys on the piano style of interior, which is not to my taste, but it's certainly arresting. It's a bit different, yeah.
Tom's one was like 5 different shades of red, and it was like sitting in someone's mouth or something. It was disgusting. I'm actually concerned that you have experience of that, so you're able to compare it. Because there's like this padding everywhere, and it's like you get inside and it's all like, different textures. And I'm talking about the Juke here.
Good.
Yeah, that's clear.
I'm glad you clarified that.
It's just the way you paused then. It was
good. All right. Well, there it is. I mean, sadly, I'm not able to say a whole lot that's massively positive about that car. You, Richard, you mentioned the cars that we're sort of pleased to give back, and I think it fell into that category actually. But anyway, look, with that, we have reached the finish line, and I want to say thank you, Justin.
Thank you,
and thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
And thanks to our primary people partner, Director of Ethical Hacking and Lead Enabler, Mr. Pritchard, for his devotion to podcast production excellence. Today, he's wearing a T-shirt with the silhouette of a person standing fishing on a small dinghy, accompanied by the words, "Can't work today, my arm's in a cast." SpongeBob pants, and they're not square, SpongeBob pants, and sandwich thongs. So flip-flops for those elsewhere. I think they're cheese and salad on rye, sandwich thongs. Let us know your thoughts. You can find CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, please rate and review us. Thanks to Wombling Wombats for the nice review this week. That was very, very nice of you. And make sure you subscribe to the CarsGuide YouTube channel so you can stay on top of all our latest content. But before we go, spotted a bumper sticker on an early 90s Cressida I was following earlier in the week with a hat-wearing driver behind the wheel. And the sticker said, "I'm speeding because I have to get there before I forget where I'm going." I thought that was highly appropriate for the Cressida.